Hey guys, I wanted to start a new weekly series where I do a Q&A and just do a Q&A. Today's Q&A is what inspired me to start Victor the Inspiration. Now this one has quite the story because Victor the Inspiration was originally formed. Well, let's backtrack. Let's talk about the name first. So Victor the Inspiration was formed when I was in high school. And at the time in high school, I was just creating a social media account, and I really didn't know what I wanted my username to be. And I was, at the time in school, again, I really didn't know what it was that I wanted, but a lot of people kept telling me, how much of a positive impact I mean to them or how much of an inspiration I have been to them. And I started to brainstorm of unique ways where I can include these certain positive words people have shared with me along with my name, which is Victor. And to cut everything short is I started brainstorming of different name ideas from, Vixivity. I thought Victor and positivity was a pretty cool one. Victimism, which is Victor, and optimism, I think is a pretty cool one. And I was just back and forth with a lot of different names until Victor the Inspiration came into play. And I did an Instagram poll of having these usernames that people liked most and preferred. And Victor the Inspiration was the one that won. And so Victor the Inspiration stuck like that. So the journey behind Victor the Inspiration, though, it's quite a powerful one because at the time, again, I was just creating an Instagram username, which is Victor the Inspiration, but I really didn't. It was just a normal social media page. I'd post my life and post what it is I'm going through, and share things on social media like every other social media normal page out there. And it was at the time when I really began to take Victor the Inspiration forward was when, or really started to think bigger. Where instead of just having so much of a username to actually turn it into a personal brand, was at a time when I was going through a very spiritual warfare where I had a mental health crisis happen in 2020, January 2020, where I had a mental health crisis. I had a mental breakdown where it led me to be hospitalized, being on a psychiatric hold, and that was a process within itself. And within that process fortunately for me, I call these people angels in my eyes, but fortunately for me, I had the support system and the circle to, show up for me and be there for me and comfort me and just be there for me. There was a time when I was at a really dark place mentally, and I had one particular friend reach out to me who we developed a relationship from. He actually used to be my respiratory therapist when I would be in the hospital. And over the years, by me going in and out of the hospital for so long and being in and out of the hospital for nearly my entire life, you develop relationships over time. And one particular respiratory therapist, we developed a relationship over the years, and formed a good enough relationship where we actually stayed in contact even when I wasn't in the hospital. And they heard about what it was I was going through, and they reached out to me personally and were just sharing me certain parts of their story that they openly shared with me. And they even, were sharing me, things that helped them and things that they were just trying to show up for me the way they thought was best. And they did, and he did. He ended up reaching out to me and we had this long conversation, and at the time I was very angry, I was very flustered, and I was just going through a lot, as you can imagine, going through this process. And I was just very angry, and I remember in the phone call, we were just talking and I was just telling him how much I was frustrated and how angry I was at the psychiatrist for what she was doing and how she was manipulating a lot of the stuff behind the scenes and a lot of stuff that was just going on a lot of stuff that was just happening behind behind the scenes, that no one really ever knows about. I never even talked about it till this day. And he was just telling me, he was like, listen, bud, he was like, why don't you turn this negative experience into a positive one? And during this conversation, he was just sharing with me, hey, at the time I was in entrepreneurship, so I was in the e-commerce industry. I was building online websites and doing online marketing for Facebook and Instagram, and tapping a little bit with influencer shout outs as well, but primarily it was Facebook advertising. And so I was in the e-commerce industry for a while, and so he knew I had the knowledge to build a website and do things in the e-commerce side of things. And he was just telling me, he was like, hey, bud, he was like, why don't you turn this negative experience into a positive one? And at the time, I really didn't understand much what he meant. And he was saying, and during the call, we were talking about, again, so many different things. And he was like, why don't you create a website and talk about mental health awareness? Why don't you bring mental health awareness? And that moment, at the end of that phone call, we were on the phone for maybe about an hour, maybe a little bit over an hour. And at the end of that phone call, I was up all night just brainstorming and thinking, how can I think bigger? What can I use with this information? It was a great idea. Mental health awareness. Document this process. Help other people through this process. And I was up all night, and I was just brainstorming and thinking about so many different ideas and so many different things I could do. And that's when victortheinspiration.com was formed. And that day, I think it was February, maybe March of 2020, which was when I actually turned Victor the Inspiration into a personal brand. By personal brand, I'm talking about, just going from a social media username to actually building a website. And I started to document my process, what it was I was going through, what was going on. And I just started to write. And then after I started to do this, then I started to upload content on my YouTube channel, on this YouTube channel, and I started to document the process, what it was I was going through. What is it that I'm doing to help me get through this process? What is it that I learned? And I started to document this process, and I started to primarily focus on mental health awareness to help other people with their mental health. But I also started to integrate personal development within my craft. Because I believe, while you have mental health and you're going through these certain emotions and you have these certain feelings and you're, going through certain life paths, you also need a way to not only so much just know you're going through this, but also you need to understand why you are going through this, but how to get through this. And that's when Victor the Inspiration really began to become something. Because I started to share why you experience X. And I started to share what I knew to help them get through X. Fast forward from 2020 to 2025, I'm slowly starting to grow Victor the Inspiration to the best of my ability. The big dream for Victor the Inspiration is to speak on the biggest stages in the world, if not the biggest stage in the world. I'm gonna just put this out there. I never really share this with anyone. I only have it written down. But one of my dreams is to speak at a NFL Super Bowl and give, up to my knowledge, the very first ever motivational keynote speech. I think that would be huge. That might be a bit far, but you never know. The big dream is to speak on the biggest stages, share my story, share what I learned, share what I know, to ultimately help other people with their mental health, cognitive development, and with their faith. I love you. I appreciate you. Please let me know, what do you think about this video? Please too, if you have questions, please drop any questions that, whether it be personal related or professional related. Please drop any form of questions you are genuinely curious about and would like to know, and I would love to make a video on that topic. I wanted to start this new series. I wanted to challenge myself this year to really push myself and get myself out of my comfort zone and try to express myself more, and again, get myself out of the comfort zone, share things that I normally don't share, and become more open. And ultimately, the goal is to simply help other people through what it is they're going through, and if I can do that whether it be a big or small way, my life is worth it. I love you. I appreciate you. And please go to becomethevictor.com to hear more about my story and also see my digital ebooks. I love you. I appreciate you. And remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.